I drove over the road with a semi for about 44 years.
Butch Amersma has spent his life behind one wheel or the other.
Well, I started when I was 14. That's all I've ever done.
But in 1968, the Spring Valley, Minnesota farmer nearly lost his life in Vietnam.
Run over a landmine with a PC.
While behind the wheel of a personnel carrier.
That's it. 3 days later, I woke up in Japan.
Part of his skull was shattered.
Oh, it took all my bottom teeth, busted my jaw in 2 places.
He doesn't even remember the explosion.
I don't remember hearing nothing. Oh, nothing. Lights, they were gone.
You said the lights went out, and next thing you know, you're in Japan?
That's, yep, getting off the plane, because I was trying to tear the bandages off my head. And they tied my arms down.
Butch's military records detail the price his body paid for his service to country.
Muscular skull fractures and fractured mandible, because this was just like a crushed egg.
Call it farmer humor, but Butch jokes there are still pieces of his head fertilizing Vietnam.
Never went back to get them, and I don't plan on it either.
Back then, he wasn't diagnosed with what we now call a traumatic brain injury. But for years, he says he suffered unexplained chronic headaches. So in 2012, after losing private insurance, Butch applied for benefits and treatment at the Minneapolis VA. Through the Compensation and Pension Department, he received disability ratings of 10% for a series of service-connected injuries, including his broken jaw, ringing ears, and facial scars.
This one here is a pretty good one here.
Despite his record showing a severe head wound, a loss of part of his skull, he received no benefits for a traumatic brain injury, commonly referred to as a TBI. His VA examiner wrote in his records, there is no diagnosis of TBI/concussion. Not one to complain.
Dang corn here don't look too bad this year.
Butch continued on with life on the farm.
I got it coming, I want it. If I ain't got it coming, I don't want it.
But are Butch and other veterans using the Minneapolis VA getting a fair shot at traumatic brain injury benefits to which they may be entitled? Our investigation found they're not.
Poring over the qualifications of VA doctors, we uncovered evidence that Butch is one of hundreds of area vets whose initial TBI exam was done by medical personnel who, according to the VA's own policies, aren't qualified to do them. In the years since Vietnam, we've learned much more about the often invisible but debilitating impact of brain injuries. So VA rules spell out that only 4 types of specialists, including neurosurgeons and neurologists, can do the initial diagnosis and evaluation of whether a vet suffers from a TBI. So what type of specialist did Butch's initial TBI exam?
It was a nurse practitioner I had in the cop thing.
That's right. Records show Butch's TBI exam was done by a Brenda Roche. She's a nurse, not a neurologist.
You take and go to your appointments, what they tell you to do, and you take it for granted they know what they're doing.
Does the VA know what it was doing? We wanted to ask the people responsible. Minneapolis VA Director Patrick Kelly and Kim Graves, the local head of Veterans Benefits. They both refused to be interviewed to answer questions about why unqualified medical personnel were used to make critical decisions affecting veterans' benefits.
So that means hundreds of veterans didn't get a fair shot to get competent medical opinions about their condition.
Ben Krause is a Twin Cities-based attorney specializing in veterans' rights.
The health care and benefits that they're entitled to.
He's also a disabled veteran who suffered a traumatic brain injury.
The VA is screwing these veterans, and unfortunately they're screwing a group of veterans that have brain injuries, and I find that repugnant.
Shortly after Carol Levin began investigating, the VA notified Congressman Tim Walz of the issue and promised in this letter to schedule all affected veterans for new C&P examinations with qualified health care providers. But with the VA already facing a massive claims backlog, veterans like Butch are left to wonder why the VA didn't just do the right thing the first time.
That's government. Don't want to get me started on government.
Yeah, Butch has already been back for his new TBI exam. This time the VA hired an outside doctor, and this time it was a qualified specialist.
Well, tonight a Minnesota congressman is calling for a national investigation.
It follows a Care 11 investigation that exposed the Minneapolis VA's mishandling of brain injury exams for hundreds of area veterans. AJ Legault joins us with the latest in his continuing coverage. AJ?
Unqualified medical personnel performing traumatic brain injury exams and often misdiagnosing veterans. Those misdiagnoses then being used to deny veterans access to care and benefits. That's what our investigation of the Minneapolis VA has uncovered. Tonight, Minnesota Congressman Tim Walz is calling for a system-wide review to ensure the same thing is not happening across the country.
So I want to know that every veteran that went in to do a CMP exam and specifically being screened for TBI saw a qualified medical professional.
Representative Walz, who sits on the House Veterans Affairs Committee, just sent this letter to the VA Inspector General asking for the investigation, writing, "It's essential to ensure policies are being followed at all VA facilities."
You clearly express that there is concern about the potential for this happening at other VA facilities.
It's certainly possible. If it happened in Minneapolis, it's possible, and I would argue probable it happened elsewhere.
A Minnesota veteran is finally getting the help he needs after Care 11 News began investigating invisible wounds at the Minneapolis VA.
This summer, we exposed how the VA had been using unqualified doctors to perform traumatic brain injury exams, leading to misdiagnoses and denied benefits. But tonight, as Care 11's AJ Legault reports, it also delayed important medical care.
Plainview, Minnesota, a town so welcoming, even the corn waves. For Anton Welke, it's home.
Everybody always makes a comment about our steer. Oh, you're from Plainview? You got the steer?
Maybe it's the flagline streets, but Plainview seems to be the small American town where service to country,
Grandpa, Laverne, he was in World War II.
is in the blood.
This one's my dad. He was in the Army. He was in Vietnam. And right here's mine.
Anton served on the flight deck aboard the USS John C. Stennis.
I think it's everyone's duty. They should do it. That's why I did it.
But that service very nearly cost him
I'm like, we're not going to make it. This is not working.
not just his marriage to wife Christina, but almost everything.
Almost made me take my own life.
Go.
Just what could spark a man
Drop it.
who appears to have so much to live for, to contemplate
It's right in here somewhere.
ending it all? The answer lies buried in the pages of his military records.
I've never read any of these.
On a night when battle station alarms were sounded on board the Stennis,
There it is. April 6, 2002. Running up ladder well, hit head on bulkhead.
Bam, I was sitting on the ground and grabbed my hand and there was blood all over it. And I was just kind of like, whoa.
a heavy metal hatch
There was some vomiting.
slammed down on his head.
Just took me down to medical and got me stitched up and went right back to work.
The blow to the head was soon forgotten, but it wasn't long, a few months, before the young sailor started exhibiting unexplained issues.
Sleeping was one of my main issues. I would fly off the handle. Bad anger issues.
I started realizing that the guy that I married I wasn't really sure who was going to wake up every morning.
After leaving the Navy, Anton and Christina returned home to Plainview and started a family. But the once happy-go-lucky Anton seemed to be battling
Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, you know.
an ever-growing list of internal demons.
I just get mad at my wife, or I get mad, I lose feeling in my arms, and just I'm so drained, I can't stay awake.
He has a sleeping disorder. He has a mood disorder. He has panic disorder. He has been diagnosed with PTSD.
In 2012, believing Anton's issues might be related to his military service, his private doctors at Mayo recommended he go to the VA for help.
I truly thought I was going for help.
The VA sent him to their compensation and pension unit.
And he's trying to tell them, I need help. Not I need money, I need help. Help me.
Because of the old blow to the head detailed in his service records, Anton received a traumatic brain injury or TBI exam. Records show Dr. Wanda Blaylark did no neuropsychological testing and found no diagnosis of TBI. Anton went home with no TBI treatment and no answers.
It is, it's a big thing to sit and wonder in your head. Am I nuts?
The veteran found himself at his church,
I had nothing left in me and
spending hours on his knees,
prayed to the Lord that
contemplating taking his life.
I didn't care no more. I was physically and mentally tired.
Looking up and in, Anton found strength through faith and family.
I knew still had something to live for.
In our most intimate moments have looked at me in the eyes and said, I'm trying. Like, I don't want to lose you guys.
But there was still the question, why did he have these problems? 3 years would pass before the Welkes got an answer. Care 11 Investigates began pushing the VA for answers about improper TBI exams. That's when Anton and 300 plus other Minnesota veterans received letters in the mail notifying them their previous TBI exam was done by an unqualified doctor. VA policy mandates only 4 types of specialists, including neurosurgeons, are qualified to make an initial TBI diagnosis. Dr. Blaylark, who did Anton's exam, is board certified in occupational medicine. She's not a TBI specialist. So Anton got a new exam, this time with a qualified doctor.
He actually did test with me. I wasn't a number finally. I was actually getting care.
Well, he said to you before you even left, without a doubt, you have a traumatic brain injury, and thank you for your service.
That finding by a qualified TBI specialist threw open the doors at the VA previously closed. Anton's now receiving treatment and cognitive therapy in the Minneapolis VA's top-notch polytrauma center. But he's left to wonder why the VA used a doctor not qualified to diagnose his injuries and denied him the help he needed for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
While Minneapolis VA officials, including Hospital Director Patrick Kelly, have refused to go on camera and answer questions about brain injury exams performed by unqualified doctors, they are required by law to respond to Freedom of Information Act, known as FOIA requests, for records and data. After months of waiting, we now know exactly how many Minnesota vets were denied a fair shot at treatment and benefits for brain injuries suffered while in service to country.
From the war on terror,
I paid a price,
to the killing fields of Vietnam,
He got all blew to hell.
military veterans and their families who've turned to the VA for help and benefits because of brain injuries suffered in the line of duty have shared with Care 11 stories of being misdiagnosed, denied access to medical care,
This process almost made me take my own life.
and rejected for benefits.
you know, you're good to go, move on.
But in many cases, they weren't good to go. VA records clearly state only 4 types of specialists, including neurologists, are allowed to diagnose whether a veteran has a traumatic brain injury known as a TBI. But records obtained by Care 11 show out of the 21 medical professionals who performed initial TBI exams at the Minneapolis VA's compensation and pension clinic since 2010, only 1 of them was a TBI specialist.
And right here's mine.
That means veterans like Anton Welke were seen by unqualified doctors.
Literally, that doctor that did it looked at, she goes, oh, where'd you get hit in the head? And I pointed to it, and she kind of ran her fingers a little bit like this. She goes, oh, I guess I don't see the scar.
In Anton's case, records show Dr. Wanda Blaylark did no neuropsychological testing and found no diagnosis of TBI. But when Care 11 began investigating, what the VA called a small number of veterans, including Anton, received letters notifying them that they were eligible for a new TBI exam. But from our FOIA requests, we know since 2010, 321 veterans were seen by an unqualified doctor. To date, 181 vets have received a new TBI exam by a proper specialist. Of those, it's been determined 50 were previously misdiagnosed by the Minneapolis VA.
It's a big thing to sit and wonder in your head. Am I nuts?
50 veterans, like Anton, originally told they didn't have a brain injury. But a TBI specialist
Throw it to Fisher, Gloria.
has now determined they do. So they're now eligible for treatment and benefits previously denied.
I wrote a check for my life saying, hey, I'm here to serve my country. Now it's your turn to take care of me. Give me the medical attention I need.
Carol Levin and our parent company Tegna are still fighting with the Department of Veterans Affairs to release records that will allow us to determine whether other VA hospitals across the country have also been using unqualified doctors to diagnose brain injuries.